Have you ever felt like the more you think deeply, the more isolated you become? The more you understand, the fewer people seem interested in listening. It's a common experience for those who find themselves questioning the world more profoundly than others around them. But you're not imagining it. Society has always had a complicated relationship with deep thinkers, often fearing them, not because they're wrong, but because they see things others prefer not to. This resistance is not a modern issue, but one that dates back to the great thinkers of history, from Socrates and Galileo to Nikola Tesla and Alan Turing. These brilliant minds have often been ridiculed, ignored, or even persecuted, not because they were lacking in intelligence, but because their ideas made people uncomfortable. One philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, described intelligence as a curse. He argued that deep thinkers often become isolated because they see the world too clearly. The more they understand, the more they separate themselves from the rest of society. But why does this happen? Why is it that society resists individuals who think differently, those who question the status quo? The answer lies deep within human psychology. When you meet someone who is physically strong, you might feel admiration. When you meet someone who is wealthy, you might feel envy or a desire for success. But when you meet someone who is intellectually superior, something different happens. Psychologists have a name for this phenomenon. It's called the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just introduce new ideas into a conversation. They reflect back the limitations of those around them, and often people don't like that. The mere presence of someone who is intellectually superior can make others feel inadequate, even if the deep thinker doesn't say a word. But why does this happen? Why is intelligence, more than wealth or strength, seen as such a threat? To understand this, we need to look at how our minds process different types of superiority. When someone is physically stronger than you, you might see them as a leader or protector. If someone is richer than you might admire their success or aspire to achieve something similar. These qualities, strength, wealth, beauty, are external. They are easily recognized and don't necessarily challenge our core sense of self. However, intelligence operates differently. Intelligence is deeply tied to our identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, beliefs, and understanding of the world. When we encounter someone who questions what we take for granted or thinks on a deeper level, it can feel like a direct attack on our sense of self. Instead of admiring intelligence, many people subconsciously resist it. It's not that deep thinkers are arrogant or dismissive, but their very presence forces others to confront their own limitations. Interestingly, studies show that in social settings, confidence is often valued more than intelligence. People are naturally drawn to those who project certainty, even if their ideas are shallow, because confidence makes people feel secure. This is why charismatic but simplistic thinkers often gain more influence than deep thinkers, who speak with nuance and complexity. In today's world, shallow content is more likely to go viral than thoughtful, well-reasoned discussions. Content that is simple, catchy, and emotionally charged tends to get more attention. Deep thinkers, on the other hand, often struggle to get their ideas heard because deep ideas are harder to condense into bite-sized, viral-friendly content. The resistance to deep thinkers is not just a social issue, it's also biological. Our brains are wired to value social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. For most of human history, survival depended on being accepted by the group. In early human societies, being rejected by the group could mean death, as isolation often led to vulnerability. As a result, our brains are hardwired to prefer conformity over individuality, social harmony over intellectual challenge. When someone highly intelligent enters a social setting, their ideas can disrupt the balance of the group. They challenge existing beliefs, norms, and group dynamics. This disruption triggers the brain's defense mechanisms as if facing a potential threat. Interestingly, studies have found that the mirror effect is even stronger in group settings. In one-on-one interactions, people may feel less threatened by a deep thinker, but in larger groups, the threat response spikes. This is because, in group settings, social status becomes more important. People aren't just reacting to intelligence itself, They're reacting to how others perceive them in comparison to the deep thinker. If someone feels outshined or intellectually inferior, they may instinctively try to undermine or exclude the deep thinker to protect their social standing. There are several cognitive biases that explain why people resist deep thinkers. For example, the Dunning-Kruger effect shows that people with low ability often overestimate their intelligence, while highly intelligent people tend to doubt themselves. This creates friction between those who don't know much and those who do. Then there's the status quo bias, people's tendency to prefer familiar ideas over new, challenging ones. And finally, the backfire effect, where people don't change their beliefs when confronted with information that contradicts their views. They double down on what they already believe. Deep thinkers often face these reactions when they introduce challenging ideas. In the digital age, social media algorithms amplify these biases. Algorithms prioritize engagement over depth, which means emotionally charged, controversial content often spreads faster than thoughtful discussions. The deeper the idea, the harder it is to condense it into a form that will go viral. As a result, society increasingly favors entertainment and simple, catchy sound bites over intellectual depth. Deep thinkers are left struggling to find an audience for their ideas. This resistance to deep thinking is not just social, it's also biological, psychological, and cultural. The human brain prefers comfort and simplicity over complexity and uncertainty. This is why intellectuals, philosophers, and scientists often struggle to gain widespread acceptance during their lifetimes. Their ideas are too disruptive, too challenging. It's not until long after their deaths, once their ideas are no longer a threat, that they're recognized and celebrated. Take, for example, Galileo, who was persecuted for his groundbreaking work proving that the Earth revolves around the sun. At the time, the Church held power through control of knowledge and rejected Galileo's ideas as heretical. He was forced to publicly recant his findings and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. It wasn't until centuries later that Galileo was finally recognized as one of history's greatest scientists. Similarly, Nikola Tesla, whose revolutionary ideas about wireless electricity and free energy could have changed the world, died in poverty and obscurity, while others profited from his work. So if you're a deep thinker, what can you do in a world that doesn't seem to value your thoughts? If you've ever felt isolated because of your ideas, you're not alone. Many of history's greatest minds faced rejection during their lifetimes, only to be celebrated after their deaths. But while deep thinkers might feel misunderstood or isolated, they should remember that their insights can change the world. It just takes time. Schopenhauer, who believed intelligence often leads to loneliness, also offered ways for deep thinkers to cope. He advised them to embrace solitude as a privilege, using time alone to focus on intellectual and creative pursuits instead of seeking validation from society. He also suggested seeking out like-minded individuals who value deep thinking, whether through books, intellectual circles, or online communities. Schopenhauer encouraged deep thinkers to observe society, learn its patterns, and choose their words wisely when engaging with others. Not everyone is ready for deep ideas, and deep thinkers should save their most profound thoughts for those who truly appreciate them. This resistance to deep thinking is not just social, it's also biological, psychological, and cultural. The human brain prefers comfort and simplicity over complexity and uncertainty. This is why intellectuals, philosophers, and scientists often struggle to gain widespread acceptance during their lifetimes. Their ideas are too disruptive, too challenging. It's not until long after their deaths, once their ideas are no longer a threat, that they're recognized and celebrated.